All right, y'all, we are heading into Carolina Park, and we're in what I consider to be the north part of Mount Pleasant. This is about as far out as you can go and still be in Mount Pleasant. It kind of borders the Francis Marion Forest, and right above us is Allendale and McClellanville. So again, North Mount Pleasant, we're in Carolina Park, and Carolina Park, you know, sits up against Wando High School, which Wando High School is one of the top public high schools in the United States. A lot of the times people move here with kids is to send their kids to Wando. So I think it's a great setup. The neighborhood we're going into is Carolina Park, and Carolina Park got started some time ago before the first recession. Everything kind of stopped and went through bankruptcy twice, and it's restarted, and it's been rolling since. I mean, I'm really surprised when I go online and look at all the houses that are under contract back here, but it's been very well received. So there's going to be about 1,500 single-family homes and about 500 multifamily homes on about 1,700 acres. There's going to be, you know, commercial aspect built back here in Carolina Park. They haven't really started to flesh that out yet. They do have a church back here, but I've been told, I don't know if this is fact or just somebody telling me something, but you know, that they're going to build a Target back here. So there's a lot of room for commercial growth in the area we're going into. Over to our left, as you first come in, the amenity center. So they've got a, I believe it's a junior Olympic sized pool, and it's got, you know, water slide and some water features. And it's, you know, this is the beginning of Carolina Park, so we'll ride back in the whole part of Carolina Park here in a little bit, but just to show you the amenity center. They just finished this up, I guess probably tail end of last summer. A lot of people like Carolina Park, people that have families, children, because, you know, having an amenity center is certainly a plus, I think, if you're gonna, you know, try to entertain your kids during the summer. And they're building tennis courts back here. They're not quite done. There'll be soccer fields, and just a lot of recreational opportunities, trail systems. Here next to the amenity center, some of the builders that are building back here are built more or less spec model homes. These homes are basically open 7 days a week. I think they're only open a couple hours on Sunday, but you know, the various builders, Klein Homes, Sable Homes, David Weekley, Ryland. Ryland's a big builder, national builder. And Structures is one of my favorite ones. We've done an interview with Steve Kendrick before, but if you're building a custom house and have a lot of money, Structures is a phenomenal builder. So we're going to start off by riding through, I don't want to say it's a starter home area, because at $400,000 to $500,000, it's certainly not a starter home price, but these homes to the right were built by Ryland, and the homes over to the left are the David Weekley section. You can research these guys online. I mean, I've sold a lot of their houses over the years, and I always felt like they've gone above and beyond what they needed to do to make people happy. They've taken this, you know, kind of Charleston architecture and Charleston colors and built these homes. A lot of double porches, screen porches off the backs. The lots honestly are not that big. I think that's one of the reservations some people have. You know, some people obviously want no land to take care of, but I do take people back here sometimes, and the lots aren't big enough, or they're not private enough for some people. So I think it just depends on where you sit in that spectrum of buyers. But again, a lot of houses have been built back here, and we're on Crane Creek Road, and this section was built by Ryland. And we're going to hop across the street to the ones that were built by David Weekley here in just a second. All right, y'all, so we're gonna hop across the street from the Ryland section into the David Weekley section. And again, David Weekley, national builder. He's built all over Charleston, and I think he builds around the United States. If I was gonna pick a builder back here that was a national builder, I would pick David Weekley over Ryland. Simply just my personal preference. I don't think there's probably that much of a difference, but I think Weekley probably puts a little bit more into their houses than Ryland does. And you know, as we ride through this neighborhood real quick, you can see that it's very similar architecture to what we saw across the street that Ryland was building. They have some passive parks that some of the houses are built around, and you know, again, a palette of Charleston colors. All right, so we're still in Carolina Park, y'all. We're going into the back part of Carolina Park, or at least the back as it stands now. There's more development that will happen as this goes on, and it will go even further back than where we are right now, which is the subsection of Carolina Park called Riverside. And Riverside are more or less custom spec homes, and basically they're custom builders that are building these houses. And they're, you know, Jack Burton, Klein Homes. Again, I talked about Structures Building earlier. Jackson built custom homes. A lot of those guys build in some pretty high-end neighborhoods in Daniel Island and Mount Pleasant. So, you know, very well-built homes, and they're going to be a step up from the area we just rode through that Weekly and Ryland built. The thing about Riverside that I think a lot of people like, and I personally even like, is the fact that there's more space between the houses. Most of these are on about a 1/3 of an acre lot, and as we get a little further back here, you'll kind of see, you know, we're shooting this in the beginning of April, and they, again, have just built all these in the last year or so. So the trees haven't quite grown in. I mean, there'll be, in 7-8 years' time, this streetscape will be even prettier than what it is right now. But, you know, I ride people back through here a lot, and they, you know, kind of gravitate towards this, you know, type of architecture, big porches. Like I said, you know, pretty good green space. A lot of these homes back up to woodlands buffers and even some wetlands in certain spots. Home prices back here are pretty high, honestly, I think, for as far out in Mount Pleasant as we are. But I do like Carolina Park, and I do like Riverside. The home prices, as we're shooting this video, range anywhere in this section from the high 5s into the 7s, maybe even low 8s, depending on, you know, who builds a house. But I do like this section, and it will be further developed out. They're actually selling some water-oriented lots. There's a lake back here is what the developer was telling me, that they're going to build some houses around that's going to be, I think, pretty cool. Those will be up in probably close to $1 million. To give you a real quick perspective on where Carolina Park is in relation to Charleston, if we were to drive out of here right now and drive to downtown Charleston, it'd probably take us a good 30 to 35 minutes. You can get to the beaches on Isle of Palms or Sullivan's, Isle of Palms being close. It's probably about 15 minutes. And there's a ton of shopping out here. And again, as we spoke at the beginning of the Carolina Park driving tour, it is going to have a lot of commercial built into it. And it ties into Park West, which we're going to head into here in a minute, which already has a lot of development and already has a lot of commercial built into it. We're off of Highway 17 now. We just left Carolina Park, and we're heading south into Park West. And Park West is a planned community. We've done video on it in the past, but today we're going to ride through and hit all the neighborhoods and kind of give you some input on, you know, as to what I think about Park West. Park West has a school back here, 3 schools rather, Cario, Pinckney, and Laurel Hill, 2 grade schools, Pinckney and Laurel Hill, and then Cario is the middle school. You have a Publix grocery store at the front. You have shops and restaurants, Joey's Bag of Donuts, you know, your pizza places. More or less, you know, things that you would use on a daily basis, doctor's offices, dentists, and you also have a fitness center. East Shore Athletic Club is back here. So you really don't have to leave. If you live back in Park West, you don't have to leave Park West most of the time to do the things that you would normally do in the course of your week or day. It does tie in via a road to our right that goes into Wando High School and into Carolina Park through there. But since we've been through there already, we're going to drive on into Park West. We've done it before, so if you want to see the schools, we've ridden back in there, but over to our left behind this row of trees is the schools that I mentioned. I don't know that we've ridden back into the parks before, but there are baseball fields, soccer fields, they have an indoor swimming pool, indoor basketball courts, so everything that you really could, you know, want or need, recreationally speaking, is over there in the town of Mount Pleasant and the county of Charleston Recreational Park. And the first neighborhood we're going to hit back here, kind of with Park West, as you come in, you've got, it works the least expensive homes in the front, the most expensive homes in the back. So we're going to start by riding through the least expensive single family home neighborhood here in just a second. All right, so we're turning off Park West Boulevard and we're going into Churchill Park. And Churchill Park was built by D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is a national builder. You know, they build production-built houses, so they built a lot of these all at the same time. And these houses, you know, range in square foot from, you know, 1,800 probably up to maybe right around 3,000, some of the biggest ones. A lot of these do have master down. The rooms over the garages are, in most cases, the main room that's up, and then there are some 2-story houses, as you'll see as we go through here. House prices, as we shoot this video, are in the low 3s, mid 3s, and maybe if you got a big enough house back here, you'd be into the high $300,000 range. You know, it has sidewalks, and I would say kid-friendly neighborhood, just judging by all the basketball goals that that line the street. Even though I have sold houses back here in the past to people who are retirement age and they've really enjoyed it. But again, this is Churchill Park. And from here, we're going to go into the next subsection in Park West in just a second. Just down from Churchill Park is the gates, and the gates are townhomes or duplexes, if you want to call them that. They're side by side, so you share a common wall with another neighbor. These don't have garages. All of them that I've ever been in are 3 bedrooms. You've got a bedroom down, and then you've got 2 bedrooms up. Price points on these anywhere from the 190s on it into the low 2s, depending on finish level. The trees have started to grow in back here, but these are very similar to the ones that were built in Dunes West that we'll hit at some point during this driving tour. No garages, so if you're needing, you're thinking that's a great price, remember you don't have a garage, so your storage space is going to be somewhat limited in the gates. And from here, we're going to go into another single family subdivision in just a second. So from the gates, which are townhomes, we come up the road and we are going into a subsection in Park West called Summerlin. And Summerlin is really more or less a big circle. These homes were built by David Weekley back in the early 2000s. And they were some of the first houses that were built in Park West. So, some of the trees have grown back in. House prices back here, as of today, shooting this video, range in the high 3s to the mid 4s. Some of these are actually pretty good lots. I've sold some that back up to, over to our right, that back up to a nice green space and wetlands, so you wouldn't have anything built behind you. The advantage to these, and the first neighborhood we rode through in Park West, is you're closer to the entrance to Park West. So getting out to 17 and getting out of Park West is a little easier than what it would be as you progress back further into the area. But again, these homes were built 1999 to about 2000, and ranging in square foot from probably 2,000 up to 3,500 square feet. So just across the street is another subsection called Foxmoor, and Foxmoor is more single family homes. These were built by a different builder. These were built by Syntex, and some people know Syntex as Pulte Homes. I have mixed feelings about Syntex. I mean, I think the newer product is better than some of these. I don't think, at least the ones I've been in, these are that well constructed. Again, this is just my opinion. I'm not a contractor or engineer, but these are probably my least favorite of the ones in Park West, and ranging 3 to 4 bedrooms, 1,800 square feet to probably about 2,200 square feet, and a lot of master down. So a lot of them are single story. So if you're retirement age and you want single floor living, these are probably pretty good spots to consider. All right, so heading out of Foxmoor, and we're going to go into another subsection of Park West called Wellesley Place. And these homes were built by D.R. Horton, and he built a lot in Charleston, built a lot around here, and a lot in Park West over the last several years. And I think that D.R. Horton has done a pretty good job of building a solid house. I've sold a lot of their houses, and for the most part, I think people have been pretty happy. These houses were built in the early 2000s. A lot of people would say these are starter homes, but these homes are in the 350-ish range. So I don't know that that's a starter home price, but they were classically marketed as starter homes when they were first built in Park West. And again, very close to the front of the subdivision in Park West. So again, getting in and out of here is a little easier than what it will be when we get all the way to the back of Park West. A lot of vinyl siding. Some of these, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 that have brick fronts and maybe some stucco, but for the most part, you're looking at vinyl siding. I mean, they all have 35-year architectural shingles on them, so you're not buying something that you would have to immediately do a whole lot of work to. A lot of the kitchens are somewhat dated. The ones that have been updated are going to be on the higher end of the price point, but I think it's a nice neighborhood. I've had sold houses back here before, and people have been very happy with Wellesley Place in Park West. We're heading deeper into Park West. We're on Park West Boulevard, which turns into Dunes West Boulevard. We'll head over there later, but right now we're going to go onto Gray Marsh Boulevard. Gray Marsh runs back into the more expensive section of Park West, starting with these townhomes. These townhomes are pretty neat. You know, they have really actually pretty good finishes. The one thing I don't like about these is they don't have garages. They have storage sheds in the back, so it's not quite as friendly as it could have been and attractive to a lot of buyers as it would be if they had garages. Also, back in this section of Park West, they built some condominiums that were actually built as condominiums, which, keep in mind, if you're buying a condominium, it's better to be on the side that they were built as condominiums initially. You don't want necessarily a condominium that was a converted apartment, because the soundproofing is different in an apartment building spec-wise than what it would be in something that's built as a condo out of the gate. These also back here in the Battery, you know, 2 and 3 bedroom units. I think the biggest ones are probably maybe a little shade over 2,000 square feet. Those would be the 3 bedrooms, but these do have elevators in them. So I think, you know, depending on what your needs are, these could help you, not have to go up and down steps. Some of them have nice wooded views. They have a pool back here that's just for this, condominium complex. These were built right before the economy tanked, and that was in, I think, I want to say 2006. These were finished 2007. But some of them have garages that you can buy aside from the units. So it's, if you need garage space, some units do come with the garages. You have a grilling area directly in front of us. You have, some play equipment for kids. And, I think these are pretty good value. At shooting in this video, you can get these anywhere from probably $175 to maybe $275, just depending on, the size of the unit. But again, this is the Battery inside of Park West. And from here, we're going to hit another single family neighborhood. All right, so just right up from the Battery is Berkeley, and Berkeley is another D.R. Horton community that was built back here. There's a lot more green space in this little section, so a lot of these back up to woodlands and wetlands. Many of these houses master down, and it's something that's in pretty high demand these days. I like these houses. I think for the price point, which is high 2s, mid 3s at shooting in this video, these are pretty good value. Some of them brick, a lot of them are, vinyl siding. There's plus minuses to vinyl siding. I mean, there's, you're not gonna have to paint it, and you can, power wash it without having to worry about chipping it up like you would something that was painted. But this is, a small little place. They do have some green space. And again, this is Berkeley inside of Park West. Summerby is an active retirement community as it's billed. And there's Liberty Cottages back here. So Summerby is over here to our left. Those are, it's kind of a retirement center. I think they have medical care, on need, and a dining facility. So that's pretty nice setup if you need more care, like assisted living. And this through here are Liberty Cottages. These are pretty nice. I mean, these were built, obviously as a retirement place, and most of them were built recently. So I think if you're wanting new construction in an area that caters to a 55 plus demographic, then Liberty Cottages inside of Park West would be a good place to consider. I will say though, these houses are pretty expensive. They're in the $500,000 range, which I think, is fairly expensive. I mean, the finish level's pretty good. I mean, you've got granite in there, you've got a lot of hardwood floors. So they're nice units, and they're not vinyl, they're either hardy plank or brick. So, upkeep on them, I believe, is covered by the regime you pay back here. So you kind of pay similar to what you would for a townhome or a condo, and you don't have to upkeep your yard. They upkeep your yard. It's, just part of that 55 plus community setup that some people like, but there's not a whole lot of it in Mount Pleasant. This is kind of it. You can go out to Somerville and places like that if you are in desperate need of that, but you have a lot of amenities around you. Restaurants, schools, and you could get to downtown Charleston in 30 minutes, but honestly, you don't need to go to downtown Charleston anymore to get to good restaurants. And certainly there's a lot of grocery stores in Mount Pleasant right outside the gates and inside the gates as well that would cover your daily needs. And there's a hospital, Roper Hospital is out here, so medical facilities within probably 5 minutes if needed. All right, y'all, so we've headed out of the 55 plus community, and we're heading into the neighborhood that sits adjacent to it, which is Marsh Walk. And Marsh Walk was built by 3 builders. The biggest one would be Lennar, and Lennar is a national builder. They built a lot around Charleston. The other houses built back here in Marsh Walk were built by Palmetto Traditional Homes and Rex Thompson Homes. They're just local mom and pop builders that built these houses. Either hardy plank, some of these are vinyl siding, but most of them are going to be hardy plank. Some of them are brick exteriors. Some of them are raised, that you'll see over here to the right, so it's elevated construction. And these are going to be a little bit, you know, I think my notes say semi-custom, and you know, I would say the ones I've been in would, I don't know if I would go as far as saying they're semi-custom, but they do have more upgrades than some of the houses that we, you know, some of the neighborhoods we've ridden through in Park West so far, which, you know, don't have some of the upgrades that you find in these, which granite and all the hardwood floors are pretty much standard throughout these houses in Marsh Walk inside of Park West. We're heading further back into Park West, and we are in Tennyson. And Tennyson is kind of a bigger area. Where we are right now is a traffic circle of townhomes. And these townhomes range in square feet from probably 1,900 square feet on up to almost 3,000 square feet. A lot of them have master down. I like these townhomes. I think that they really hit a lot of check boxes for people, and the price points on them are still, I think, pretty good for what you get. You have a detached garage in the back, and you have a courtyard that's in between the detached garage and the house. So you have a little bit of green space that you, if you're a gardener and you want to have some space, I think they're pretty good for that. They've kind of got a little Charleston look to them with the double front porches and the, you know, the colors and the dormers. So again, we're in the Tennyson section, and we're going to drive further back in here past these townhomes to the single home part of Tennyson. The section we're going through that's single family in Tennyson, you know, sit on larger lots. These are about 1/4 of an acre to 1/3 of an acre. Most of them are elevated construction, so you park underneath the house. These are either on, you know, really heavily wooded lots in the back, or a lot of the ones here in front of us in Tennyson overlook a tidal creek. So, you know, really pretty vistas back here. Directly in front of us is the neighborhood crabbing dock, so you can go back there and go fish, crab, and, you know, really pretty views of the creek that sits back there that feeds out to the Wando River. House prices back here, shooting in this video, low 500s on up to probably a little over $1 million, you know, for the stuff that's on deep water. And as you can see, I mean, some of these elevated houses are built next to houses that are, you know, not necessarily elevated more than a crawl space. So it's, and I've covered this before, but it's an architectural style. It's called a low country style house. So it's not necessarily built up high for, you know, for flood reasons. And these were built by various custom builders, and to my knowledge, no production builders built any of these houses. And you can see a lot of the lots that were on the market over the last couple of years have been bought, and people are building houses. If you can find a lot back here, you can get a lot for, you know, probably $250,000 would be the least expensive lot, on up to probably about $400,000 for something that had a dock that you could actually access the creek from. And again, this is Tennyson, and we're going to head into a little further back as we go. Right next to Tennyson is Wheatstone, and Wheatstone is just another semi-custom neighborhood inside of Park West. A lot of these are oriented to the marsh. All to the right are homes that overlook the marsh, and some of them have long views of the creek. House prices back here from the $500,000 to $900,000 range. Some of these were built by custom builders. A lot of them were built by, I believe, David Weekley built a lot of these houses. And then again, some of the ones on the creek were, you know, private builders that built. The average square foot on these houses is about 3,000 square feet. Some of them a little bit bigger, and 4 to 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. This is a nice subsection. I think people tend to like, you know, the finish levels of these houses. You know, the price points we're talking about. Everything's granite, hardwood through most of the houses. And, you know, there's an adequate amount of spacing. Some people do think the houses are still a little tight together for their taste. I guess it just depends on how well you want to get to know your neighbor. And that is Wheatstone inside of Park West. We are back driving through Park West, and we're going to go into Coat Bridge. And Coat Bridge was a neighborhood built by David Weekley back in the early 2000s. And I like these. I've sold a couple of these over the years. I think the finish level, again, I think I spoke about it earlier when we were at Carolina Park, is that I like David Weekley. I think he does a good job of finishing a house. You know, the houses are pretty close together. It would be one of those situations where you have to be ready to meet your neighbors, because they would be right out in your front yard a lot of times. You know, the price points of these houses anywhere from the high 3s to mid 4s. Cement plank siding, so you know these are hardy plank, which is a wood cement composite, and they're near Toomer Creek. This is more or less in the middle of Park West. They have some, you know, nice green space that we'll ride around here in a second that kind of centers everything up. And most of these are at least 3-bedroom houses, some of them 4 and upwards of 5. Again, we are in Coat Bridge, a David Weekley community inside of Park West in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. All right, so continuing back in Park West, these are a neighborhood or townhome section called the Hampshire, and these were built by D.R. Horton, ranging in the price range $400,000 and up. These are 3-story townhomes, double front porches, and some of them have elevators. They're pretty good deals, I think. 3-car garage, and probably one of the better ones, you know, built in 2007, so I think that they have there's a lot of upside to that. Kingsbridge is located inside of Park West, and it's next to the Hampshire townhomes. These were built by D.R. Horton as well. These are new. These were built probably 2011 and on up until probably last year. These are 3 and 4 bedrooms. You have the garage in the back, so you do have a garage with these units, and you have a small courtyard. These do side up against the Mount Pleasant Regional Airport, but it's a regional airport. I can't guarantee that you never hear a plane, but there's not going to be any commercial flights. It's just Cessnas and whatnot. All right, so progressing a little further back into Park West and in the subsection called Melrose. Melrose, these are all custom built single family homes. You know, brick veneer fronts, cement plank, hardy plank siding. And this is kind of, you know, kind of a secluded little subsection inside of Park West. Some of these homes have, you know, waterfront docks. And price ranges $600,000 on up to, I think, probably the most expensive house back here is probably close to $1 million. These are on bigger lots, and you know, I think sometimes it's better to be in some of these smaller subsections than the bigger ones because you're just not going to have as much, you know, through traffic. So these are a little bit more secluded. And again, this is Melrose inside of Park West. So we are in Andover, and Andover is another custom-built subsection inside of Park West. These houses anywhere from, you know, probably smallest house back here, probably 4,000 square feet on up to a little over 5,000 square feet. And these are on a half-acre to 1/3 acre lots. A lot of them set on wetlands, a lot of them back up to creeks and ponds. So, you know, if you want something with a little bit of privacy, these lots tend to set up a little bit better than some of the ones in the front of the subdivision in Park West. And these are all custom-built homes, hardy plank exteriors, brick fronts, a lot of low country raised style houses. Most of them fairly new, most of them built in the last, you know, since probably '07 till the present. And if you wanted land, Andover would be a place that you could get, you know, a lot back here for 250s, maybe low 2s if you bought it at the right time, all the way up to probably $400,000 for something that was on a tidal creek. So we're at the back of Andover inside of Park West, and we're gonna go back to the gates of Park Island. I don't have a code to get back here today, unfortunately, but we have shot video back here in the past. These are on, a lot of these are on acre plus lots. So all of it's, you know, it's a deep water oriented community is Park Island. Certainly the furthest place you could buy if you were gonna buy a house in Mount Pleasant would be on Park Island. And a lot of people like the seclusion. I think it would be a lot of driving to get out of here every day, but there's a lot of homes built back there that people tend to gravitate towards. But you know, if you wanted a house back there, you're looking at over $1 million in Park Island. And if you wanted a single family or you wanted a building lot in Park Island, you're looking at about $500,000. But most of them do have deep water docks, so that's the plus with Park Island. Getting near the back of Park West is Pembroke, and Pembroke is a neighborhood that was built by Ryland Homes. And most of it built in the 2007 to, you know, probably they finished homes building back here probably 2 years ago. A lot of people like these houses, and I do too. I like the colors. You know, we'll get a little further back here, and you know, there's a lot more tree coverage as we get, you know, deeper into this subsection in Park West. I have clients that live back here and they've really enjoyed it. You know, lots of basketball goals, lots of social activities, and it seems to be people from all over the United States that end up gravitating towards these houses. Good finish level for Ryland. Again, Ryland is a production builder for those of you who don't know who Ryland is, but I think the finish level on these houses is honestly as good as some, you know, semi-custom houses I've been in over the years. So, you know, again, a lot of tree coverage. House square footage ranges back here from, you know, 2,800 square foot to probably 3,500 square feet. A lot of them back up to woodlands and wetlands and some ponds. And again, this is Pembroke inside of Park West, and it's on Hall Point Road if you're looking for something to put in your GPS to get back here. Directly across the street from Pembroke is Kensington. And Kensington are townhomes that were built by Lennar. These homes were built probably, I want to say, early 2000s. And these are, you know, I think good square footage and not really that bad of a price point. These are in the high 2s to low 3s. A lot of 4 bedrooms. Some of these are in over 3,000 square feet. So you've got a garage down and you enter through the, you know, the door, and then you've got a garage that feeds into some room. Some of them have rooms off the back. They're on the main level, and then you've got the middle level of these townhomes as your living area, your kitchen, and then you have bedrooms up. So, and I think Kensington inside of Park West is not a bad setup for those wanting or needing space and not wanting to necessarily buy a single family home. You know, these are, again, much more affordable than what you would get if you were going to buy a, you know, just a single family home on the same square footage. So Kensington and Park West across from Pembroke, and we're heading further into Park West. We're almost to the back of Park West, and the last custom-built neighborhood is Masonboro. And Masonboro homes back here range 3,000 square feet to probably some of them over 5,000 square feet. Again, it's very similar to Andover, very treed lots, low country style architecture. A lot of these have marsh views, and practically all of these were built by custom builders. There are some that have been built recently by Emerald Homes, and Emerald Homes is a division of D.R. Horton, so, you know, it's not a custom builder necessarily, but they're throwing a lot of custom stuff into these houses. And again, this is Masonboro inside of Park West. These are some of the bigger size square footage homes in Park West. All right, y'all, we've made it to the back of Park West, and the back of Park West ends in the Villages. The Villages are adjacent to Masonboro Park. Masonboro Park has a crabbing dock and just, you know, some green space, so it's a good place to access the water. These were built by Syntex, and they were built in the early to mid 2000s. They're modeled after a lot of Charleston architecture. I mean, kind of loosely done, but, you know, double porches. They have some of the side entry doors, like the double door where you have a door on the side porch, and then you have the main door to get in the house. I've talked about Syntex before. Finish levels on these are what they are. I mean, the price points back here in the mid 3s to upper 4s. The thing I'm not a fan of in the, you know, this subsection of Park West is honestly getting out of here. I mean, it's probably 15 minutes to get to Highway 17 from the Villages. You know, if you had a job that you work from home, I think that these could be, you know, a fine setup. If you were traveling to downtown Charleston every day, it would drive me crazy personally, but, you know, again, each his own. But this is the Villages inside of Park West, and homes back here range in square footage from the 2,000 to probably 2,700 square feet. Heading out towards Highway 41 side of Park West, and we're going to run through the Swim and Tennis Club, which services all the neighborhoods inside of Park West. What you have back here is you have 2 pools that are joined by a common area, and you have a fitness center at the very back and tennis courts. So, you know, if you live in Park West, you have access to this. The pools are open seasonally. The fitness center and the tennis courts are open year-round. And, you know, this does a pretty good job of handling most of the need for Park West pools. I think at some point they're probably going to have to build an additional pool just to handle the growth that's going on in Park West right now, because these were originally built, you know, just with what was built in the 2000s. So I think you will see, you know, more amenities added in Park West. I don't know when that'll be, but that's just my opinion. And over to our left, you can see Preston, which is a subsection we're going to ride through in like 15 seconds. Right up from the amenity center is a townhome subdivision that I really like. It's called Preston, and these were built by D.R. Horton. Most of them built in early, mid 2000s rather, into, I guess they finished up probably about 2 years ago building these. But these are 2 and 3 level townhomes, so you've got garage, parking. They're very similar, honestly, to the ones in Hamlin Park, which were built by D.R. Horton as well. A lot of these back up to a woodlands buffer. All the ones to our right, the ones to our left, they back up to other units, which, you know, are not as favorable. These do have master down. The ones to the left, the ones to the right, the master is on the top floor. Again, Preston, inside of Park West, sits right next to the amenity center. All right, so we're turning off Park West Boulevard on the Bessemer Road, which is a great road to know about if you decide you end up in Park West, because this takes you into 41, which you'll see when we head out of here. But Keswick, these are townhomes that were built in the early 2000s. Some of these have master down. You have garage parking for your cars. And I really like these. These are good values, I think, for, you know, the square footage, which I want to say is in the 2,000 to 2,500 square foot range. And these on the market for $275 to the low threes. Pretty nice setup, and they tie into Arlington, another single family home subsection inside of Park West that was built by David Weekley, I believe, and Ryland. A lot of these inside of Arlington are master down, single story, and, you know, they set up well for people that don't want a whole lot of yard space, because, you know, they have small yards in the front and fairly small yards in the back. But again, this is Arlington inside of Park West, and it does set off of Bessemer Road, which will give you the ability to get out of Park West probably as quick as you can get out of Park West of any neighborhood that's complete inside of the area we're in right now, to get out to 17 and get out to 41. All right, there's a lot of new construction neighborhoods that are just literally coming out of foundation right now, and we're listing these on the screen for you. The ones that are being built in Park West, you can see, you can research them by Googling them, but there really is not enough for us to ride you through. So you'll see them on your screen, and they are additions to Park West that are coming as of 2015.